Crazy mistrade right here, bro. I'm sick as shit. Oh my god. So I was looking at it on the 30 minute, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of looks like we're exhausting here. On the 15, kind of moving sideways at the time. When I zoomed out though and looked at the 4 hour, I was like, I don't know, this shit kind of going straight up. So that gave me that, that kind of gave me a little bit of confidence there. But I was on the 5 minute and I didn't want to take the 5 minute. But this is what I saw. I saw that demand that formed overnight, tapped into that and respected it, and then we saw our setup here with this low. What the fuck? With this low, this lower low, and then this high here. And I put the order in, and then we came down and we started moving back up, and I was like, that's not a good sign. But we failed to move higher before coming back lower. I was like, as long as we don't run this high and then come back down and threaten breaking this setup, then it would still be good. And ended up still being intact. This was a trade here, entering at the top of that green candle over there with a stop loss at the lows. It was a great confluence because it's below that setup and below that demand, so would have been decent. And then it was actually going to be a little bit higher risk reward targeting those highs for 14 points instead. But yeah, equal highs there to target that. We probably would have had to just go for 1-to-1 to follow our system and not try to skew our win percentage. But yeah, that was a very high probability trade that we could get up to there. Could have caught those 10 points for a quick 100, but we didn't, or even sized in, taking 2 contracts, right? Staying within that $250 risk. Taking that trade there. I don't know. It was a lot. Coming to the screen, it was kind of a lot. Didn't look clear. Wasn't as much clarity. And then taking a 5-minute setup. I didn't really want to take a 5-minute setup. Even seeing this price action, very not good. But that's some good confluence, right? That demand. And then getting that setup at demand, holding above. Even when you after you tap demand, when you're holding above like that, it's decent. When you get the setup tapping off demand, of course, getting in just down here would have been much, much better risk to reward, right? Would have been crazy. Would have been a crazy entry. But you do get that confirmation when you get that setup tap bouncing off of it. So that's a very high probability setup right there. When you get the demand holding. Now, do you get continuation? Who knows? But you can at least grab that 1-to-1 from what I've seen so far. So that's a very high probability setup. On ES, we were watching. We saw this 15-minute supply form. And then we started pushing back into it. We knew we could push back into VWAP, trying to target down below. And we're just identifying range and conditions here, whether this is the range or this is the range. We were trying to short below this level, targeting back down into this demand. But then we're like, nah, maybe we should just be buying down here and selling back at the top of this if this is the range that's established. Because remember, this 4-hour price is really, really struggling to break back below this area here, this 52.79. So that could easily be the range. If price is still going to respect it and hold that up, this could be a range. So just being desperate for a play early, we were like, damn, we could take this little supply here. Price is breaking down, right? On time frames up to the 1 hour. We're seeing lower highs being created. So we're like, damn, we could take that. It looks like it's a supply forming. We should be good, but I remember these are choppy conditions. Never take it. Don't take the supply. If these were trending conditions and each, price was being respected right here, taps into it, goes lower, comes back up, taps into the swing low of that, goes back down, taps into the new swing low that was created, goes back down, then it would be one thing. But knowing this choppy condition, this shit is gonna get ran. You're gonna get manipulated before the real move actually happens. So now we're getting a tap back into this. It's 12:36, so it might be a bad time. But now you get that break below that pivot, showing that these sellers are trying to confirm now. Now you could probably get in, right, with your stop above where that's at, and then try to target. Um, and then try to actually target what you wanted to see. How many points is that? 6 points. Yeah, so we could try, test something out here. Something like this, possibly, right after getting a little bit of confirmation. And something like that would be much better, considering that you got that break below that pivot. So those buyers are trapped now, so that's a much better sign. And then just taking it back in the opposite direction, right? Taking it back in the opposite direction. And then here on gold, it was just, man, that's just a crazy one. Not gonna lie. Probably do need wider stops here. Got all of those equal lows down there. Lots of liquidity resting down there. Oops, didn't mean to move that one. What the fuck? Do have some FOMO there. Not gonna lie, missing this. Missing this gold trade. If I'm gonna be honest. One hour looks fucking terrible. Oh my god, it looks so bad. Shouldn't even be trading this type of price action. This is a valid setup though. It's just on the 1 minute. And here's the real one. High, low, higher, high. Setup inside of a setup. We'll go in with a little higher risk, but it's not that good of a trade to full risk on. So we'll go in light, tight stop loss. Just looking for continuation. Yeah, on that 5 minute, we kind of sweeping. Sweeping the lows there on the 5 minute. Gold looks like it wants to break down. That could be probably not a real breakdown there, to be honest. Get some inverse. So, gold pulls back and wants to bounce. Then that'd be good. In there, just looking for everything to stay intact here. That's a decent sign. Like those trades that roll over, try to roll over immediately. Yeah, only thing I can say I like is that manipulation, right? Sellers were lots of selling happened here. They got squeezed out. Buying happened. People will probably try to buy above the zone. And then we got that confirmation, that breakdown here below the line in the sand. Right, of course, this is the better place to sell, somewhere up here. But it is what it is. Where we at with it? See if we can get that rotation there. Oh yeah, it's trying to break down now. Yeah, as we get to 1-to-1 there, I'm gonna go break even because we really just want to see follow through. So it is what it is. On the higher regards, we are looking for that 1 hour to get tapped down there, but we can't guarantee that. So we're just gonna be targeting these lows since there's so many equal lows, so much liquidity down there. That's just what we're targeting. Kind of range bound trading. Again, trying to figure out if this is just a range. Definitely got to go break even here because, kind of selling under this support, even though we push back up, faked out, still playing around in support. So selling right under support, and it's possibly range bound. You kind of want to sell up here. This is ideally where we want to sell at. It's the top of this range, right? So we'll see. But we have a narrative. We have I don't know, hypothesis, thesis. One of those where our main story is that we could possibly tap into this higher time frame support and into this higher time frame demand. Also, with it being that we tapped into the higher time frame demand and failed to push higher, we're looking to see maybe if this 1 hour is the real area where buyers want to step in after getting some sellers to enter the market, right? And then just giving us the basic low, lower low setup, right? And then even on a 1 hour here, we're getting that green candle where possibly, we possibly may get another green candle in here somewhere. But maybe an entry back above this candle, back above support, heading back to the top of the range is something that's trying to set up. Who knows though? Who knows? And then that inverse correlation with gold looks good. Right, gold's trying to bounce a little bit. So if gold wants to bounce and keep running, we're seeing that inverse correlation as gold moves higher. ES is moving lower. Really upset about that gold setup is much higher probability. The gold setup is much higher probability. Kind of stalling out here on this play. I don't think I've placed any trades since that lost Friday. That lost Friday really shook me up. The only thing that it seems to be the only thing different about trading in choppy conditions is knowing that there's going to be a lot more traps. So it seems to be that the setup works just fine. But normally, right, we try to take, okay, we broke down below here. Let's take the retest here. Let's try to get it to work, right? And then it might just blow through that level and then set up and then go. In this case, our key level was this 15-minute supply. We're like, okay, strong selling came from here. It happened at a level of support. This is a really good play. That's a good confluence, right? That's good confluence. You got supply lining up with resistance. It doesn't get any better than that if the conditions are right. In this case, the conditions aren't right. We're like, yo, I mean, kind of looks like it's ranging, right? When we go to the higher time frames, kind of looks poor, very poor, very poor. Smaller candles, candles are wicking more. So it just looks very poor. Those are some of the clues that is possibly ranging. And then seeing, okay, we pushed up, tried to push back down, held it, moved back up. Nothing's really happening. So we're kind of like, okay, it might be getting a little choppy. So that was the clue that conditions were changing. And usually we want to stay away from that. But seeing this the same thing, I'm like, yo, how, I was trying to figure out how we could still trade, how we will modify the way we trade for when conditions change, or if we were just going to try to sit it out. But you really do see it's the same thing, just with manipulation. I looked at my other trades and I was seeing, okay, I'm still identifying the same zones, right? But if we were to get into something like this, where we see the supply, it taps into it, and we're like, okay, it may be choppy, so let's wait for some extra confirmation. Let's maybe wait for this engulfing, right? Enter after this, breaks with a stop loss above the high, so we can take a little bit less risk in these conditions, and then it just blows through, right? And then I would either do one or two things. I would say, okay, now that we broke this supply, okay, I was wrong. I just had direction wrong. Let me change, let me not be stuck in a bias. Let me change my direction. And I'm going to retest here, and I'm going to go long above this supply and then get wrecked there. And then it turns around and it moves in my favor anyway, right? After taking all my money from me, short and long. But in this case, we just waited and saw that it was a fail. We just identified that there was a trap. This zone obviously means something, right? This area of price obviously means something, because it trapped above it and then rolled over. And then we get the same setup that we're looking for, a change in trend, high, low, higher high, a break below that low that is starting to be respected. So you get the same entry model, just with different conditions. Now you have to identify a trap at a major key level, right? Not just a trap in the setup, not just this high, low, higher, high. That's a trap in itself, right? Because that impulse move gets buyers trapped in. But also happening trapping on a deeper level, pretty much on a higher level, trapping the actual key level. Because you can get this same setup at resistance and it's respected, right? It just taps into resistance and continues. But in this case, you get that trap and you get the trap of the key level participant. So both the trap of the people who bought on the impulse move, and you're getting the trap of the people who are trying to buy above this structure to see if this structure holds. No point in me watching the 1 minute here. If this if this is just break even, it is what it is. Pretty much just taking a stab at it. Conditions aren't ideal. Can't expect anything really. As long as it's not a loss. But other than that, you can't really expect anything. So there's that. If we take a stab at the trade in these conditions and you don't lose money, then it's kind of a win. If you make money, it's a win. But as long as nothing bad happening, it's okay. This also helps me understand the context of, when those entries get retested. I was so against moving stop to break even, because a lot of times you'll get these, like in a situation like this, where you'll get a move, and then to kind of change up, whether it's the lower time frames or something will change where it has to come back and retest the entry. And you could possibly go into drawdown again before it actually moves. So I would hate getting tagged out of those trades. So I set that same criteria to not move my stop loss, even in trending conditions where momentum is on our side, because I always want to give it room to breathe. But if we're trending and momentum is on our side, there should be no reason for price to come back and retest our entry. Right? So honestly, right now, it's the opposite. Right now, I probably should leave my stop loss all the way up top to fully allow the trade to work, because these are conditions where more than likely it's going to come back and tag it. Right? These are the conditions where more than likely it's going to come back and tag my stop loss. But if it does, that's okay. I'm not going to lie. Because again, we're in conditions where you have to be safe. You have to be safe. You have to be safe here. It's not about making money in these conditions. Yeah, we can allow ourselves the opportunity to possibly make money by putting on a trade, but the number one priority is protecting ourselves in these conditions, because things can go either way. It can go either way. So the main priority in these conditions is, one, sizing down like we did, right? We could have put on another 2 contracts if we wanted to and still been under our max risk, but instead we're only risking $67 on this trade, right? And we're, our stop loss is at break even. So if this wants to move, then it'll move and it'll allow us to make money. But if it does want to do anything trickery, anything risky, we're protecting ourselves. So not only identifying when and how conditions have changed, but also identifying and being flexible on how you execute and manage risk when conditions change. I think that's very important for me to consider as well. And that saves you the frustration. That saved you the frustration, because you're like, oh, I got tagged out of a winning trade. Well, not really. You protected your capital in unfavorable conditions is what really happened. You didn't get tagged out of a winning trade. You protected your capital in uncertain conditions. So you did a great job in that regard. But yeah, this thing just doesn't want to move. We are getting a more full body push down, close there, so that's good. Oh shit. But yeah, so it's possible to see, it's possible to just get tagged out, especially when it's not trending too heavy. Would be great to just see this continue lower, but yeah, you can't force anything here. Where those lows at? Move this up. And close to tagging us out there. Gold is doing something. I gotta use the bathroom, so I'm gonna go use the bathroom, and then we'll come back and see what has happened. Got a little concerned seeing that ES started pulling back as gold was still selling off, but now we're seeing both kind of push up here. So it'll probably get stopped out. That's a nice push there. Well, yes. I keep forgetting I can move these when I'm in a trade. I can make what I'm trading bigger for the meantime. For the meantime, between time. But yeah, stuff like this is really hard to even make sense of it. It's really hard to even make sense of it because you'll see it's correlated, right? When gold's doing one thing, ES is doing the other, or like almost like inverse. And then you'll get times where it doesn't. You know, you're very confused. Both of them start pushing or whatever the case may be. Of course, they're not going to be tied to each other exactly. This is kind of like a rough, not rough estimate, but like it's a very small piece, right? It's a very small piece of confluence. But yeah, we just got stopped out for break even. Might have took a $5 win or something. Who knows what it was? And then you could always re-enter if that was the case if things still looked decent. But I feel like that was just a great lesson in oh no, there's no setup there. I feel like that was a great lesson in just understanding what the circumstances and the conditions were, right? Understanding that's not something where you're just taking a stab at it. The only other thing I will say though is that these are the conditions where you definitely want to be going 1-to-1, right? We could have easily just took our 1-to-1 and got out. The smaller scout moves could have easily just got in and been right out of that trade, right out of that trade. Because again, what's the probability of price trending after us being in all of this chop, all of this chop, all of this chop? What's the probability of price trending after we get into the trade? Trending straight into our target. Definitely lower than ideal conditions. So kind of want to be in and out of those. So yeah, we could have walked away with some green there. Could have walked away with some green there, but we got took that break even instead. So this is something I haven't tested. I'm really just learning this as we're going. Like what's the best way to trade? Because again, most of the like I would have already been slaughtered by now, right? I would have tried to short that supply as we push back into the resistance. It would have blown through the supply. I would have already been demolished by now. But for the times when you are actually succeeding in these conditions, then how are you going to manage the trade and manage your risk? Right? Because you never know. And that's the only thing is, yes, during those trending conditions that we were seeing 2 weeks ago, I was being really conservative with those targets because you don't know, right? Even during trending conditions, at any point in time, price can decide to come back, stop you out real quick before it wants to continue doing what it's doing. You really don't know. You really don't know. So that's why that 1-to-1 was in place for, even then, because I'm like, it applies to all conditions, right? Not just trending or not just choppiness, because you never know when conditions can change. You can get a hint of when it is changing or when it has changed, but you never know if it wants to just change while you're in a position. So you take what you can get. So I can definitely say that. But yeah, even this trade, this trade almost gave us a 2-1. Even that would have been great. But psychologically, it doesn't really do anything to me knowing that this is not the time to make money. Like, yeah, we had an opportunity to make money, but just because we did it doesn't do anything to me psychologically, because we're in a mode to preserve capital, really. Right? Set on the sidelines until an opportunity presented itself. An opportunity presented itself, didn't play out, but it didn't hurt us at the same time. So that's a win in that case. Here's possibly that re-entry opportunity here, because you got the same thing, same setup on the 1 minute again. Pretty much same risk. Our risk was above this little high right here, but it would be pretty much the same thing. That high, low, higher, high, same thing, right? After stopping us out there, if it wants to continue lower, same thing. All right, so if you were to replace the order here, same idea. Same exact trade I did, just protecting your capital. Literally just protecting your capital is the number one priority. That's the number one priority. Go. And again, pretty much the same setup, same trade idea. If we get stopped here, it is what it is. Basically, again, basically the same trade idea and same risk. The other trade was break even. So this is almost like we're executing the original idea. The only thing is the risk is a little bit, stop is a little bit lower than before. Right now, it was still being drawdown compared to the original trade right around entry for the original trade. Oh, wow. I don't know if news came out or what just happened, but yeah, same thing there. Manipulation. Go back to break even. Again, same trade idea. Trying to test out the same thing there. Shit you see on the 1 minute is insane. Honestly, shit you see on the 1 minute is insane. Now taking a stab at it again, risk free. Hopefully we get more of a bearish close there, and price wants to move lower. Starting to push lower there. Starting to push lower. And hit target. That's insane. I'm not gonna lie. It's 131. I don't know if news got released or what, but I don't know if news got released or what. It was kind of don't know what to say about that, honestly. It was strange. That was just an insane level of confidence, just accepting, just understanding what we're doing. We lessened our risk. That's our full risk is $250. So we could have 50 points. Kind of shook. I'm not gonna lie. So we size down in that regard by how much we're risking on a trade like this. We protected ourselves, right? We understood that even when we take the correct entry, our entry can be retested in these conditions. And if it's retested, you simply get out, and 9 times out of 10, another setup will present itself. And if another setup presents itself, then re-enter. This doesn't mean revenge trade. This doesn't mean chase. The only reason we re-entered was because the trade idea was still intact. It was never invalidated. Right? Our original stop loss was up here. Our original stop loss never even got invalidated. Right? So if we would have saw that, then maybe we're reconsidering this because now, okay, obviously we're on the wrong side of the trend. But the reason we got into the trade was because of this setup here. with our stop loss there to say that, okay, above this point, our trade idea is invalid. And then even seeing that second push after it stopped itself for break even, that second push respected the first trade idea, was enough for us to go ahead and re-enter again. And normally, I would, that would not be, I would feel like I'm breaking my rules by doing that. I would feel like I'm chasing or I'm revenge trading or I'm doing something I'm not supposed to. But when everything aligns like that, then you can make the proper trading decision. Yes, conditions are different. Yes, it's choppy. Yes, it's very likely that we get stopped out. Or stopped out for break even, and it retests our entry after we move our stop loss to break even. But yeah, that's can't be mad. Again, I was like, we should have took that 1-to-1. Yeah, that's true. We should have took the 1-to-1, right? And then again, if it came back to our entry, knowing that our overall trade idea was that it could come and target this liquidity that's resting down here, again, we could have re-entered. So that we at least walked away with some money. And then the second trade was 100% risk free, right? Risking the same amount. But, even just moving that to break even once it moved into our favor, I feel like it's great, right? So we already minimized risk by sizing down and not using our full risk on a trade like this. So if it went against us and we took a full loss, we wouldn't be taking a full max risk loss. And then we mitigated our risk even more by, once it moved into our favor, moving it to break even and accepting that, okay, these conditions are going to be weird. I'd rather get out for break even and have it get out, stop us out for a full loss, and then continue, right? So I think that was well managed. And I think this is that was a very important trade for me to take at this point in my journey. I'm going to be honest, because of the things that we saw. So the biggest factor was this supply zone getting ran. Us seeing that this was a key level and price ran above it, not only peaking above and trapping us on this resistance rejection for people who try to short here, which is also the supply, right? But then peaking above that supply and giving us again a 15-minute short setup, right? Where we'd be looking to now, okay, now is the time for us to look to take a rejection. After buyers are trapped into the market up here and sellers got squeezed out right down here previously. Now is the time for us to take a rejection at this level. And then we simply just went down, right? We saw that there was a pop above here and into that level, right? This low going down in the 5. This red candle, the bottom of that red candle is where we'd be looking to take our short. But if we were to take that, then our risk would have to be above. So then what did we do? We went down to the 1 minute and identified the same thing. So now we identified this setup where we got our high, we got our low, and then we had another high, and we're expecting to see price push into the bottom of that red candle. Now we can put our stop above here comfortably, targeting a move lower. So just a setup within a setup within a setup, built upon the fact that we had trap conditions, right? A trap here, signifying that we had choppy conditions. And that sign gave us the blueprint that we needed to manage the trade properly. So seeing, okay, supply zones are getting run. If this was a strong trend, we see that down move, we see that supply get created, we tap into that supply, we head lower. If a supply zone or a demand zone is getting run like that, then that means that our entry and our stop loss can get run the exact same way before it moves into our favor. So we need to manage that accordingly. So that came down to the trade management. Okay, if it goes into our favor, boom, let's move it to one. Let's move our stop loss to protect our capital. The same thing. Then we got the same thing, a setup at a setup level. Here's the previous setup level. We got another setup where our entry would be exactly basically the same entry, right? Entry was a little bit lower, stop was a little bit lower, and just took the same thing there. So very good trade. And then now if this is the range here, I'm still looking to see if we get some type of long setup that forms down here on a higher time frame, because we're coming into this 1 hour demand. So now we'll see if some type of long setup forms down here. That's the original trade we were looking to take, because right now bulls are willing to hold us up above like 52.87 for some reason. Bulls are super willing to hold us up there for some reason. So there's a demand that's created above that level where they're willing to defend. So now we wait and see if they step back in there. That's all you can do. Was a little worried about this trade because the gold trade went without us. So I was a little bit concerned, am I just here now to force a trade because I have FOMO? But that was good. That was good start to finish. That was, good spot in that opportunity. I believe it was good spot in that opportunity, and very good management of it as well. Very good management of it, because that was truly a display of protecting our capital, not trying to force making money, but really protecting our capital first. And I think that's a really important part for me to understand if I want to advance as a trader.